Bleh. Because it's like, I don't want any of my exes back because I'm a different bitch to who I was when I met them. Hi, I'm Amber Killer. This is Friend Crush, my video series, formerly podcast, where I talk about stuff and things, cute, chaotic, and critical thinking. And today's topic is, do exes always come back and does it matter? So I think this is a worthy topic of discussion because I spoke about it on TikTok, received a lot of responses. I have had a lot of questions before on this topic, and what an interesting one indeed. This is obviously my personal opinion, perspective, understanding based on my experience, based on my learnings and observations. So it's not going to apply to everybody. And I think that the way that I'm going to approach this topic is under the assumption that you have a relationship or friendship, because I don't think this just applies to romantic relationships. And there's always like one party that either initiates the breakup or does something to initiate a breakup. And then, so that's party A, let's say. And then party B is the person who's like the one who is probably like more initially heartbroken, having to process the breakup, having to process disrespect, disappointment, whatever. And then does party A always come back to party B? And does it matter? So I can maybe like offer my perspective from party A little bit later down the line, but let's assume for the purposes of this episode that you are party B, you've been wronged in some way, you're getting over a breakup, and you want to know if party A is going to come back. What does it mean? Does it matter? So the video that I made on TikTok, I talk about how, they usually do come back, and it usually doesn't matter, for me at least, by the time they come back, because 9 times out of 10, the attempt to return into your life, into my life, is embarrassing for them because there's usually a lack of accountability, lack of personal responsibility for the ways in which they've hurt me or disrespected me. And for me at that point, I'm just like, I don't even want you in my life anymore, because when I am in a relationship or a friendship with somebody that I care about, I really do like give it my best shot. I really try to take care of the people that I care about. And it doesn't mean that I never make a mistake and I never do anything wrong. But if I do hurt that other person's feelings, I'm going to try my best to make it up to them. I would expect them to communicate that to me. And then I would want to do my best to make amends if there's someone I really care about, and then we can move forward together. If we get to a breaking point and we cannot find a middle ground, then even if I'm really upset about it, I will always find a way to accept that we're just not compatible. And for the time being, it's better that we're not in each other's lives. And if I do disrespect someone to the point where they don't want me in their life anymore, then I've probably done it intentionally because I don't want them in my life anymore either. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that I've never disrespected somebody ever before, but if I do something that I am aware is disrespectful and I'm not willing to take accountability, I'm not willing to apologize for it, then it's probably because I don't want that person in my life anymore. There's something else that's happened, or there's something else at play here that I'm either not willing to confront, not willing to bring up, or I've just accepted that it's like, okay, that's just who you are. This is who I am. It's not going to work. Goodbye. And how people see the ending of relationships is always different, because, for example, there's been people in my past where we've been in a friendship, like we call each other friends, but the way in which they've treated me has not been like what I would really think is how I deserve to be treated as a friend. They've either said really fucked up shit to me, treated me poorly, and in my attempts to exit that friendship, they start acting entitled to my time and attention, even if at some points I've said to them like, hey, I'm not okay with the way you speak to me, I'm not okay with that kind of behavior. They might apologize in the moment and then go back to like how important I am to them, how much they want me in their life. And if the behavior doesn't change and I fully exit and they act entitled to me being their friend, like they would consider my no and rejection of them as disrespectful to them. But I've already experienced disrespect from their end and I'm outie of that situation. Okay. So I don't come back after something like that because I just think it's so difficult for people to change, and I accept people as they are, and then I decide whether or not I want them in my life or not. It's not about I accept you as you are, therefore you can have access to me. It's like, okay, if that is who you are, like you've actually shown me who you are, and I don't like it, then I just have to accept that we're not compatible as friends in a relationship. See you next time. So that's a separate issue. But say that you're in party B's situation, okay? You've gone through this breakup. People keep telling you they're going to come back. You're wondering if they will. You keep holding on to this idea that they're going to come back and things are going to be different. For me personally, I feel like when you get to that point in a relationship, even if you really love this person, even if you had a really good time together, something is like fundamentally incompatible about where the two of you are at this moment that has required this experience to be part of your relationship. For you to get to a point where you're crying every day over them, you're so disappointed, so heartbroken that you feel this like gaping hole in your soul where they used to be, a sign of a healthy relationship, you know? I think that if it was meant to be and you were meant to continue, you wouldn't get to that point. If you were able to break up with someone and be on really good terms and not feel that sad about it, then I wonder if you really felt that deeply for each other to begin with. And this isn't a value judgment about like you're a good or a bad person and your relationship is good or bad. I don't really like to see things in those terms or through that lens, especially when it comes to interpersonal relationships, because I don't think it's actually helpful. But I'm just saying, like, there are some people that I used to be like romantically or intimately involved with, and we can still chit chat every now and then. It's not that deep. I never really cried over them. It just means that I didn't actually like them that much, or I didn't have this like intense attachment to them. And that doesn't mean that they're a bad person. It doesn't mean that our relationship doesn't mean anything or I didn't care about it. It's just like that wasn't the dynamic of our relationship. But if I have been like deeply in love with someone, very attached to them, and we've had like a relationship that has been great, somehow transformative, or like been filled with great experiences, and then we get to a point where I'm crying every day, or they've disappointed me in a way that I don't want to speak to them again, or we have to go through a period of no contact for us to be able to potentially maybe make amends or speak again in the future, then I think there is a fundamental incompatibility at that point. Like you've reached a crossroads and you can either attempt to stay in that place and go around in circles, wondering what went wrong, wondering whether they'll come back, wondering like what you could do, or you can just move forward. And I have my podcast episode on training for a breakup, which I think I'll do a revised like video version of. But I just think that heartbreak and love are inextricably linked. They are two sides of the same coin. They are part of the experience of like human attachment and human connection, because there is no human experience, there is no experience in this world that exists in a singular form, that does not have an opposite that needs to also be considered in understanding one or the other. Like when I was younger, one of my favorite artists was and continues to be Amy Winehouse. And I used to listen to her music a lot when I was a teenager because I was singing in our school jazz band. And I remember the first time I was really disappointed by a man that I had loved. I wouldn't say he broke my heart, but he just disappointed me. And her music took on a completely different meaning after that experience, because I was like, oh, I actually understand what she's singing about. Because up until that point, I liked her music, I appreciated her lyricism, but I didn't have this like deep emotional connection with what she was singing about because I had not experienced that kind of attachment to someone, and then the heartbreak that comes after it. So I think that we often deny ourselves the ability to process and appreciate negative experiences because the way that we live and the society that we live in is always making it seem like things have to be good and perfect all the time, and anything that feels uncomfortable, anything that's painful is inherently bad or makes us somehow wrong as people. Like, you're wrong for experiencing heartbreak, you're wrong for having a difficult emotion, but that's not true. There is opportunity in love as much as there is opportunity in heartbreak as well, and it's really important, I think, that people find a way to see those opportunities rather than just ruminating and longing for things to just be good and perfect all the time, because your inability to embrace those negative experiences, those uncomfortable emotions, hinders your ability to appreciate the positive experiences. Like, you're constantly chasing a positive experience, you're constantly chasing that high, and it's never going to be the same because you've lost your ability to appreciate the present moment. You've lost your ability to connect with your emotions because you're running from your negative emotions, from your uncomfortable emotions. So I think that just because something is painful doesn't mean that it's bad, and it doesn't mean that you're not going to get through it and you're not going to triumph and you're not going to grow and you're not going to be a better version of yourself. But you need to trust yourself and push yourself to work through those difficult emotions and trust that it will be over, because your emotions really are like the weather. They come and go. But sometimes you continue, sometimes the rain has stopped, but it's still raining in your mind. Like, you're still seeing clouds even though the sun's out, you know? And as someone who has experienced like extreme levels of depression, anxiety, like, that's what happens when you're depressed. Like, you don't have to have depression to be depressed, because you're going to feel sad as a person and just experiencing this life. I mean, honestly, just look around at society, okay? It's not that lit. There are so many things to be grateful for and to appreciate, but I just find like humanity in general quite disappointing. So how can you not be affected by this existence, by the fucked up shit that's going on in the world, let alone the ways that this impacts people on an individual level and then in their interpersonal relationships? So it's okay. Go easy on yourself. That's what self-compassion is for. But when I've been heartbroken, depressed, suicidal, that's what happens. It's like the rain continues in my mind. There's still thunder, even though the sun's out. So part of the process of me dragging myself out of a mental gutter is learning to be grateful for the present moment, to find things in my life that bring me joy, to do things that move me through my emotions. And I talk about that in the Training for a Breakup episode. Trying a new hobby, learning something new, hanging out with your friends. Like, you need to find a balance between having time with yourself and processing your emotions, writing all of your insane thoughts into your journal / death note, and then also continuing to move on with your life and build a new sense of self. The space that this person has left is an opportunity for you to reassess who you want to be, because you don't want to stay the same anyway. And if you stayed with that person, who knows the ways in which you might stagnate, because things are coming to an end for a reason, and you need to embrace that to then allow yourself to better assess whether you even want to be with them if they do come back. Which brings me to my next point, when they do come back. For me, whenever they have come back, in whatever capacity, whether it's because they want to start up a romantic relationship again, or they just want to be friends because like the context of our romantic relationship was never really for long-term commitment, you know? I don't think that every romantic entanglement that you get into has to be under the premise of like, we're dating to commit to each other and we're going to get married. Maybe you're dating for a period of time that works for the both of you, and you recognize on some level that it's not going to be long-term because things are changing all the time, blah, blah, blah. And I've had a few relationships like that. And, you know, when things are good, we talk about how we can still be friends, even though at some point the romantic part is going to end. But then things are not handled the way that they need to be handled for me to consider somebody worthy of being my friend. And in my disappointment, I realized that the relationship was great while it lasted, maybe, but we're not as compatible as I thought we were in a romantic sense. because it was very context specific, and also not as friends. You know, like the romantic feelings that you have for someone, your physical attraction can cloud your judgment of red flags that you would not that you would otherwise notice if those romantic feelings weren't there. It doesn't mean that I haven't been really sad when I've had to break up with someone, but it also doesn't mean that I think of that sadness as a reason for me to want to still be with someone. You know what I mean? Like, I feel that, especially now, if somebody has disrespected me and I'm crying over them, I'm usually crying not over them. I'm crying that I was a clown for ignoring red flags, because you see them and you notice them, but then you just kind of ignore them in the moment, which is fine. It's a human thing to do. Like, you can still give people the benefit of the doubt. But then I still am just like angry at myself, and that's just something that I need to process, and then I eventually get over. And then by the time they come back, I'm like, well, I'm not actually interested at all in you, especially when there is a lack of accountability, you know? And I think that you reveal yourself to people in layers. You can't truly know someone in the space of 1 to 3 months, even a year. You know, you need to see someone through all the different seasons of the year. That's actually what one of my exes told me. He was like, I don't feel like you really know someone until you've seen them through all 4 seasons of a year. And at the time, I was still young, I was still naive, and we had quite a big age gap. And I was like, what does that even mean? Like, I feel like I already know you. But I didn't know him. And he revealed himself to me in layers. And that was one of the most traumatic breakups I've ever been in. But what I learned from that was that it takes time to get to know someone. At the beginning of a relationship, both of you are projecting all of your happy feelings and emotions, writing all these little stories about the ways in which you would be great together, or the future, imaginary future you're going to have together, but you don't have enough data points or evidence of what this person is like in all the different areas of their life on a day-to-day basis. How have they been living up to the point that you guys met? You know, especially as you get older, it's like they've been on the planet for 25 years living the way they live, and then you cross paths, and now you've had like a small part of each other's journey together, or they've been on the planet for 30 years living the way they live, 40, 50 years. So like, I think it's by the time you're 30, 35, that's when a lot of your habits and your patterns of behavior are like quite ingrained in your identity, and it's difficult, or it takes a lot of effort to actually change who you are. So that's why it's so important to accept people as they are and not invest in their potential. And it's normal for you to do this in a relationship, and part of grieving in a breakup is like grieving the potential, that story that you wrote in your head, the story that you wrote together about the things that you would do, and the feeling of loss around not being able to live those things out. And I think it's really important that you write all those things down, that you write down the things that you're mourning and that you're grieving the loss of, so that you don't allow them to just constantly replay in your mind. That is why journaling and thought dumping and death noting is so important, because it's so different talking about your feelings and like thinking about your feelings versus writing them out to yourself, because you don't want to over rely on a therapist. You don't want to over rely on your friends to process things for you, because that's still something outside of you. You're still like talking it out in an external way, and you're like looking for other people's validation of your thoughts. But I think when you just thought dump, you take 10 minutes to just write down how you're feeling, to write down what you're thinking, all of your insane, unhinged thoughts. That's when you're actually going inward and you're like communicating with yourself. And it's not like you just do it one time and you get over it. Sometimes you might find yourself writing about a situation for months, until one day you're literally just sick of yourself and you're like, why am I still writing about this? I'm actually over it. Or you stop thinking about it with the same frequency that you did before, because you're extracting those thoughts out of your mind and actually like processing them with yourself, rather than like waiting for other people to validate your thoughts and feelings for you. It's so important that you have a process where you're doing that for yourself. And what was I saying? So you're grieving the potential, and part of wanting a person to come back is thinking, maybe I'll actually be able to live out those things. I don't know. I just think if you really were able to, you wouldn't have this communication break where you're so disappointed and so upset that there is no accountability that's been taken, and you just kind of like are stuck in this limbo. Now I sort of understand how difficult it is for people to fundamentally change who they are. And I think that when you have this breakup where you need like a period of no contact, where you've realized this incompatibility that exists in your relationship, whether it's to do with like their character or your circumstances, I think it takes minimum a year for people to really change their habits and who they are. And for the things that will break up a relationship, I think it's difficult I think it takes a really self-aware person to be able to communicate the things that they want to change about themselves to their partner and to commit to working through them with their partner's support. Okay, that's not an easy thing to do. It's not impossible, but I think it's difficult. And I think that someone who's willing to do that would not want to get to a point where they have to lose you in order to realize that and to communicate that to you and to commit to that, if that makes sense. Because why do you want to be with somebody who has to lose you to recognize that they need to become a better version of themselves? You know what I mean? Like, you just want to be with someone who already wants to be better. Like, don't you already want to be better? I don't need a man to tell me the ways in which I would need to be a better woman to be with him. Like, I just want to be a better woman on my own terms anyway. If a guy told me like, oh, I would date you if only you XYZ, I would literally tell him to go fuck himself. And I think that if you're doing that, you haven't accepted them as they are, and you are investing in potential, and you're hoping that they will change to become the person that you want them to be, rather than loving them for who they really are. And that is selfish as well of you to expect that from someone, because if you really wanted to have an authentic relationship and connection with somebody, then you would either change something about you, or you would leave this person alone and find someone that you're truly compatible with, or someone that's really what you want, you know? And obviously it's tough, but it's hard, in my opinion, it's harder to invest in wanting someone to change than just focusing on yourself, you know? But I think a lot of the times people are afraid to be alone, or whatever conditioning they've had makes them think that it would be easier to just change somebody or to just invest in somebody rather than investing in themselves. But then again, I guess for some of the relationships that I've been in, it's like, oh, I've seen how they are doing something that I wish I could do, and subconsciously, by association with them, I think that maybe there's something that they can like teach me or show me that I don't already know. But the breakup teaches me that I need to nurture that thing within myself. I don't need to rely or wait for someone else to show me how to do it. That's something that I need to be able to do for myself. When I realize that and the person does come back, I'm not interested in them in the same way that I was when I first met them, because I've come to terms with that toxic little part of me. So I think that, again, it's like, if you're waiting for them to come back to validate your feelings or to complete you or give you closure in some way, that means that there is a part of you that hasn't come to terms with the thing that you've given up to that person, the thing that you feel like you're not able to do without them. Does that make sense? And whatever that thing is, it can be so subtle and so very randomly specific. But for me, it might be like, when I'm dating someone, I give up my personal responsibility to validate myself. And when I'm single, I feel great, living my best life. And then when I'm in a relationship, if it's with someone who knows exactly what to say to stroke my ego to make me feel good, I might become interested in them, or I might become attached to their ability to stroke my ego. And then, without even realizing within the relationship, I give up that part of myself to them. And then when things start going wrong, or they're not able, or they aren't validating me as often as they were when we first met, I start to get resentful. I think when you're not fully secure, but like when you haven't taken time to work on your self-esteem, you will date people that you want to be like, or are doing something that you want to be associated with, but it's more like you actually want to be that. Like, I remember I had this friend who was obsessed with this guy who she'd never even really dated. Like, maybe they'd hooked up or were in like a never ending talking phase. And he had a job at a company that she admired, and he was very like man about town, knew a lot of like high profile people, and he just never really expressed the same level of interest in her, and kind of maybe strung her along, or just never really made an effort to actually date her and be with her for whatever reason. I think he just, I mean, they lived in different places, but so he didn't even like treat her well, but she was like obsessed with him, but she was obsessed with the idea of him. And for me, I was like, you just want to be him. And you already are actually similar to him, like a great job for your age. And you are very woman about town. You have a lot of, you're very well connected. You're very sociable. It's just because you admire him that you want him to like you. But if you just became more grateful and self-compassionate for the life that you have and who you are, you wouldn't think he's that great anymore, because you recognize that you're actually able to do that yourself. Because you would recognize that it's not that you need to be more like him. It's like you already are like him, but you think that you need validation from him to validate how great you are, but you can do that yourself. Or you can also look to the people that you already know that validate you and love you for who you are. They come back. When do they come back? I think generally speaking, it's 1 to 3 months. That's when they initially come back, but sometimes it's years. Like, I've had people that I was like romantically involved with, and I cut out, and then like 5 years later, they hit me with a DM. Hi. Actually, I even had a guy hit me with like a oi. So Australian and so embarrassing. No reply from me. I mean, most of the time I just find it embarrassing, because in the context that we're talking about here, because I think that if someone was really going to come back and come correct, like, you wouldn't even be asking this question, like, do they come back? Should I take them back? Because they've come correct. And whatever issue that you guys had, you were able to work through together on some level when they did come back. Or it's not even like they ever really left, like they needed to figure their own shit out and come back, or you need to figure your own shit out and whatever. Like, that's a separate thing when you're able to take a break and then meet again as new people and start a new relationship. Because I think that's what's important after a breakup. Like, you don't want to like do the same thing that you've already done, in my opinion. You want to grow into a new person. You want the person that you were with to grow into a new person, and for the new versions of yourself to align and be compatible in a new reality, Even if it was really great before, that's in the past. You want to create something new. Maybe there's going to be similarities to what it was before, but I don't want the same shit. Even if what I had before was already good, I believe that whatever's coming next is going to be better. And whether it's going to be with someone I've already dated or someone I've never dated before is immaterial to me, because I want us to be new versions of ourselves. Because after a breakup, like I said, when you have this free space where this person previously occupied in your life, the thing that you want to do is fill up that space with new things, and not new things that distract you from your pain, but processing that pain and then actually building like a new sense of self. Like, imagine your sense of self is like on a foundation, and then it's something that is built like a building. When you've gone through a heartbreak, part of that building has maybe been demolished. Maybe part of the foundation has been damaged or exposed. So the process of going through a heartbreak and rebuilding your sense of self is actually like getting into the foundation, rebuilding it so that it's stronger, rebuilding like the structure of the house, and like improving the way that it's being built. That would be like a healthy approach. So, you fill that space that was left, new, healthier habits, hobbies, relationships. If you were going to fill it with distractions, that would be like leaving the damage as it is and just like getting new furniture for the house, or like doing some sort of DIY makeshift improvements that don't actually add any value to the house or improve from the damage that's been done. So that would be like hooking up with a bunch of random people, dating someone new immediately, going out and partying, getting fucked up. Any self-destructive behavior that might look fun on the outside but is actually not adding any value to your sense of self. So those are two different approaches. And the funniest thing of all is when you break up with someone, they immediately start dating somebody new without any self-reflection, no accountability for how they've hurt you, and then they come back. Blech. As much of an ego stroke as that can be, because it's like, oh, you miss me? It's almost worse than if they didn't come back, because I'm like, this is actually so insulting that you think that I would still want you in this condition, you know? And if they're seeing someone else, then it's even more disappointing, because I'm like, what, now you want to disrespect two women at once? Like I've said before, I'm a girl's girl, okay? I'm not a pick-me. The pick-me seed is planted in my mind, and I do my best to keep it under control. But I do not want to be in a triangulation situation, okay, where it's like, oh, a guy with a girlfriend and you're like the ex-girlfriend that he's friends with, or I'm like seeing a guy and I'm friends with another guy and like triangulating them. My ego doesn't need that kind of attention. There are so many other healthier ways for me to be validated and get attention from other people that to me is so toxic, so boring, not necessary. And even if a guy is like seeing a girl who I don't even really like that much, I'm still going to be on her side. I believe in women's rights and women's wrongs. And I want my life to be full of peace and prosperity. And I want that for women. I think that's how society moves forward. And I don't want to be the source of another woman's insecurities. I don't want another woman to be the source of my insecurities. I don't want to date a guy who's got a girl bestie and like makes it weird between me and her, or like she makes it weird between me and him. That's not interesting to me. I would not put myself in that situation. I would exit if I was ever put in that situation. And I've had guys that I've been previously romantically involved with or like intimate with disappoint me in some way, go and date a new girl, and then try to like keep me in their life in some way. And I know that the other girl would not be comfortable with that. I don't know many women that are comfortable with a guy going out of his way to keep a girl that he previously dated, was maybe in love with, or maybe felt very fondly about in his life. Do you know, like, correct me if I'm wrong. Like, I can understand if you broke up and it was civil, or like maybe you do business together, but people that are like, why are you trying to maintain two relationships at once? Because I've had guys who are dating someone new and still trying to talk to me like on a semi-regular basis, or suggested that that would be possible for us. And I'm like, but I don't want to talk to you like that. And why aren't you interested in what your girlfriend has to say? And if your girlfriend's not interesting, well, then that sounds like a you problem, not a me problem. I'm not trying to like make up for any lack that you have or that you perceive another woman has. That is not my problem, especially if I'm not getting paid and you are broke. So this is not interesting to me. Buy me a Birkin bag or fuck off. That causes me to lose even more respect for someone. Like, okay, you disrespected me. That was disappointing. And now you've gone and circled the drain, come back and been like, I want to disrespect the new girl that I'm seeing and you at the same time. How's that? How about circle this? I never flip the bird in real life. I think I'm just trying to get it out of my system while I make these videos. But don't you think it's embarrassing? Like, imagine if you were that girl and you're dating this guy and he's going out of his way to make efforts with somebody who he's either disrespected, disappointed, or whose heart he's broken, or who he didn't realize the value of until he lost. Like, the fuck? I don't want anything to do with somebody like that. Like, look at it objectively. Like, maybe you love this person at one point in your life, but then this is obviously a pattern of behavior. Like, who were they doing that to while you were together is my question. Who were they thinking that about while you were together? And who is he going to do it with next? And is that going to be like the undoing of this guy's relationship? Probably. It's usually a pattern. Like, it's not you, but there's going to be someone else that comes along that piques his interest. And the 80-20 rule is probably going to fuck him over. Like, he's got 80% with the girl that he's with now, someone who's actually not yet seen how shitty he can be, not yet been disappointed and disrespected to the degree that you were. And then he's going to throw it all away for 20% that he sees in some other girl. Why are we even in a position where I need you to get out of my life and then try to find a way back in? I wouldn't do that to someone that I care about. And I understand why people like can't communicate their feelings, why people like fuck up, but I just think that if I have done my best with someone, which is what I tend to do when I really care about them, even if I don't see like a long-term future with them, if I want them in my life in some degree, I'm going to be as respectful as I can. I'm going to make as safe of an emotional space as I can. And sometimes my version of that is not what somebody else needs. You know, like whatever they think is a safe emotional space is not the type of safe emotional space that I can offer them. And that's okay. Like I'm not going to change who I am for them the same way I don't expect them to change who they are for me. But if I've done my best, which is what I try to do, which is why I think it's important to be vulnerable, to be okay with being vulnerable and not being afraid to get hurt, because at the end of the day, you have to pick up your own pieces, right? And you have to learn to trust yourself. You can't outsource that self-trust to other people. You are courageous when you trust others, but if they betray your trust, you have the trust you have for yourself as the foundation on which you fall back on. So it's not that it's not painful for me when I'm disappointed when I break up with someone and there isn't a part of my ego that enjoys them coming back and having that stroked, but I don't find that reason enough to like take somebody back and allow them access to my life, because you're bringing more problems. I want peace and prosperity. Remember, you coming back into my life and making a mess, that's a problem. You disrespecting me to begin with to the point where I'm crying and throwing up and so disappointed in myself for even giving you a chance to begin with, that's also a problem. So I want peace and prosperity, not problems. And you've brought two types of problems to my life. If you're dating someone else and you want me to be in your little like love triangle, that's double problems. Now I've got to deal with a girl potentially being upset at you and then at me. No, you're not that interesting. Oh, even though I'm empathetic to the reasons why somebody can't communicate their emotions, somebody wasn't able to treat me with the respect that I deserved in the moment, that's fine. Like, you're free to disrespect me, to treat me however you want, at whatever level you're capable of, but that doesn't mean that I need to accept it. It doesn't mean that just because I love you that we're meant to be together if you have caused me pain and don't take accountability for it. It's normal to have conflict in relationships and to have challenges that you need to overcome. But if you're in a healthy relationship or a friendship, like you're on the same team and you can work through it together, and your inability to work through it together is usually just an incompatibility, and you don't have to take it personally. Of course, the urge to take it personally is there. Of course, the pain still remains, but you can process that pain. You can get over it. It might linger. It might come up every now and then, but your awareness of it and your ability to process it, let go and keep it moving, return to the present moment, remember what you have to be grateful for, remember how far you've come. That's what really matters at the end of the day. Sometimes it's not really about them coming back. It's just about your ego and wanting a screenshot to send in the group chat. You know what I mean? Because that's always fun. Like, how embarrassing is it the way that this guy's messaging me after what he did, and your girlfriend's being like, oh my God, what a fucking loser. I love moments like that. But I have so many other ways to get attention and to be validated for things that get me paid, or things that are like actually productive, things that make me feel actually good and accomplished, that I don't need it to be a guy who's mistreated me coming back and thinking that I'm stupid enough to see value in the shitty little offering of a friendship or a relationship that he has, if he hasn't taken any accountability. And honestly, for me, like, my bar for accountability after being disrespected is freaking high. Like, there aren't many people that can meet it, because I try to be so intentional with my relationships of any kind that if you don't value that, if you can't appreciate that, then I take offense. If you can't appreciate that, if you are going to fumble, that is a reflection of the lack of intention with which you are acting with, and that is a turn off to me. It's not about them being a bad person. It's just like, I don't want to be around people who are so careless, because it's scary to me. Like, what other problems are you going to bring? If you can't communicate through your feelings, if we can't create like a healthy shared reality, that's freaky deaky. I don't want problems. I want peace and prosperity. If we have problems and challenges, we want to be able to work through them together. If we can't work through them together, that's okay. Please leave me alone. Anyway, my iPad is like somewhat charged. I always forget I have an iPad, but I have screenshots from the TikTok that I made. Let's read some comments, shall we? I've never had exes come back. I think that's great. That means they're doing you a favor, to be honest, because if somebody fucks your shit up and feels bad enough about it or ashamed enough of themselves to not have the audacity to come back and try to fuck it up again, maybe you should be texting that, not the other way around. They do always come back even after years, but they are never self-aware about how sad it is and act like we're old friends, not someone who hurt me. Okay, no, the thing about when they come back and like try to apologize for the ways that they mistreated you, it's never a real apology. It's always, I'm sorry if I upset you. If, like, they're still giving themselves a qualifier and still trying to like not seem like the bad guy, still unable to consider that they were the source of somebody else's pain, still unable to consider that they had done something wrong. I'm sorry if I upset you. I'm sorry if I did anything. You know that you did stuff that was fucked up. You know that my feelings were hurt. You know that you disappointed me. You know that what you did was not okay. What do you mean if? That's not a real apology. That's a cop-out. That's another problem that I don't want. You've disturbed my peace. Pretending that like nothing's happened, I'm not about that. Okay, like, I don't have to throw it in your face, but I'm not going to go out of my way to be kind to you, to be nice to you, if I remember very clearly the ways in which you disappointed me. Like, we're not at a neutral place because you haven't taken accountability. You haven't done anything to recognize the damage you've done to my sense of self, recognize the damage that you've done to our relationship and the way that I see you. I still see you for who you were, not the person that you wish I could see you as, or you hoped that I could see you as when things were doing well. We're just not in a neutral place anymore. I don't need to hate you, but I also don't need to make you feel good about the fact that you upset me. That's not my responsibility. They come back every time, but in my experience, they're just lonely and haven't actually learned anything. Yeah. Because it's like, I don't want any of my exes back because I'm a different bitch to who I was when I met them. The breakup gave me the opportunity to reassess who I wanted to be, consider like what went wrong in that relationship and what I can learn from it and what is my responsibility to like take care of moving forward. What was I maybe avoiding in myself that created an environment for a not so healthy relationship, or that created an environment for me to be disrespected in a way that shook me to my core. And whatever work I've done on myself has made me different to who I was. And when they come back, it's just a reminder of who I was, who I'm not anymore. And I'm not trying to go backwards. I'm trying to move forwards. I want to spiral up, not spiral down. Even if I'm in a worse place than I was, it's still a different place. There's still no place for who they were, who they've remained as in this part of my life. Okay, I have problems now. I don't want more problems. But yeah, I think it's really difficult to change, like, fundamentally who you are, to change your habits. It takes minimum a year, and it takes time being intentionally single and alone. And I think especially for guys, and even lots of women as well, they find it so hard to be alone. You might just happen to be single for an extended period of time, but you might not be aware of the ways in which you continue to seek validation from the people that you could potentially date in that process. You know, I think a lot of guys have told me before, like, oh, I've been single for so long, but then they tell me about like all these girls that they kind of dated and hooked up with in between. Like, okay, you weren't in a committed relationship for an extended period of time, but you were still dating, still fucking around, still distracting yourself from introspection and from taking time alone. You were still looking for ways for women to validate you. The same way that women might say that they've been single for a really long time, but they've been on dating apps the whole time, swiping, going on dates, but not in a committed relationship. To me, being single, intentionally single, is like you're not keeping one eye open for a date. You're just living your best life. Maybe you go on an occasional date, but you're not like seeking validation and approval through romance. You know, you're creating ways and maintaining a sense of self that is separate to your romantic attachments to others. Very difficult to do these days, it seems. So if you needed this person to like fundamentally change some kind of like emotional habit that they're in, maybe they always stonewall you, maybe they're hot and cold, whatever, like that's not something that they just get over in a week. They can't just change that about themselves. And if they want to commit themselves to changing, I don't know. I don't think that you want someone to be changing just because they're afraid to lose you. You want people to change because they want to change for themselves. I don't want to change just because I'm afraid to lose another person. That means I'm insecure. Like, I want to change because I want to change. That's just me though. Then someone replied, did they come back even if you begged? Then the reply is, I've maybe pleaded for them to stay in a way initially, but you can't convince someone to be with you. But they've come back every time eventually on their own. Yeah, why do you want to beg? Have some self-respect, okay? Figure out the parts of yourself that you need to work on so that even if it's painful when someone leaves your life, you can accept that they have a life of their own, that they need to live the same way that you do. You cannot force people to stay because you don't want to be forced to stay anywhere you don't want to be either. But what is it inside of you that is like insecure to the point where you feel like it would be safer if someone forced you to stay somewhere than to figure out where you want to go on your own? Does that make sense? I like the idea of rekindling, but from my experience, they come back and keep leaving and coming back. It's just not worth it. Obviously, it depends on each person, but don't expect them to be great to you when they come back. Have low expectations for them. Yeah, look, okay, this is going to be me talking about when I'm in the A position. So I haven't ever been in a situation where like broken up with someone and then come back like wanting anything serious with them. I've only ever come back because I want my ego stroked and because I'm bored. So one example I can think of is like I briefly dated someone. It was very circumstantial. They still disrespected me in some way, very disappointing. I decided it's not worth being friends with them. It's not worth even really knowing them because I've seen them for who they are and it's not as lit as I thought it initially was when I was like projecting and making up a fantasy about them. And then at some point, they are unable to accept the fact that I don't want to be friends with them. They kind of embarrass themselves begging to be my friend without taking any personal accountability for the ways in which they disappointed me or disrespected me. And then maybe more time passes, we bump into each other. At that time, I've like just broken up with someone, kind of want attention. So I may be in a silly, goofy mood, chaotically like reach out to them. I'm not coming to them from like a respectful place in that moment, you know? It's like just me wanting my ego stroked, wanting to have the upper hand. And when that person hasn't taken me up on my offer, I honestly respect them more because now they have self-respect. They embarrass themselves already begging for my friendship when I'm like, but you were so rude to me. Why would I want to be your friend? Then when I'm in a mood where I'm like, I just want free attention, And they're like, I'm not going to give it to you because you left me high and dry and I embarrassed myself, and that would be embarrassing if I was to take you back. I'm like, well, thank God for that, because honestly, I regret messaging you to begin with. And I'm glad you have self-respect, even though I heard that you haven't gotten better, you've just gotten worse. Anyway, them coming back is life teaching the same lesson because they haven't done the work to move past that chapter. Get to class if you want to graduate, period. Because if you have moved on and become a new person, someone just reaching out to you in a superficial way, coming back because they haven't done any work on themselves and they haven't bothered to like grow out of the self that they were, that's just a test, in my opinion. Or that's just like to see how much you've learned. Are you going to cave and like regress to an older version of yourself, or are you going to maintain the sense of self that you've built since they left? Ex tried to reach out years after I blocked him. Years is a key word. Embarrassing for him that I found out he was married and his new wife was pregnant with their first. Terrible behavior on his behalf. And bullet dodged for her because that could have been you. Or someone said, like, can you please tell her? I don't know if that's your place at all. Like, if someone was like egregiously, excessively trying to pursue me while he was involved with somebody else, maybe. But a relationship is between two people at the end of the day. Whether it's a friendship, whether it's a romance, I don't know if you want to get involved. Unless it's like really like serious pursuing, like just a message because he's bored and like feeling insecure and wants his ego stroked. I don't think that's a reason to like, yeah. Anyway, because some people would rather just live in ignorance, you know, like for them, ignorance is bliss. I have had friends who are like, they would rather not know if their partner cheated on them. And I'm like, well, for the record, if you ever see somebody that I'm with cheating on me, you tell me immediately. I would rather be upset and get rid of them than be played for a fool. There is nothing that gives me the ick more than knowing that a man that I love, or knowing that someone who I care about and have extended time, patience, effort towards, walks around thinking that they can disrespect me while I do that. There is nothing that I find more offensive than that. Very few things that I find more offensive than that in my personal life. But some people, they don't think like that. They would be okay with their partner cheating or going behind their back as long as they don't know about it. I can't relate. So you don't want to get involved in someone's relationship in that way, you know? You never know if you don't know them personally. But if I was like friends with the woman and then I knew that she wouldn't, and I knew that she would want to know if her partner was being unfaithful, then that's when I would consider getting involved if it was like really serious. Okay, a comment from a man, I think. A woman I was seeing was hanging out with other men behind my back and didn't tell me. Her apology was, I'm sorry, but I didn't do anything wrong. I said, thank you for showing me your true colors. In what world would I come back to that? Okay, hanging out, I'm not sure, but maybe they mean like dating and hooking up. And everybody has their own boundaries, standards, expectations. So, yeah, her like, I don't think I did anything wrong. That's just who she is. She's going to want to hang out with dudes when she's dating. You don't want a girl who's hanging out with dudes when she's dating. They exist. Embarrassing for them and embarrassing for us if we take them back like I did. Emoji. He never changed and hurt me again. Lol. Yeah, but this shows growth. Don't let people play you for a fool. It's hard to have self-control and discipline, but that's how you live a slay life. Lots of people don't have emotional discipline, don't have sexual discipline, don't have discipline around their boundaries. It's not easy. I definitely used to not be very good at this. Gotten much better as I've gotten older. And you cannot pay for the mental peace that I experience as a result of that. You know, like making sure that you process your emotions and your thoughts first before you act from a reactive place. The delayed gratification cannot be bought. What about when they say they'll only come back if you were truly good? I did do something bad halfway through, but I apologized and he made a fuss about how he wanted to treat me better and we got through it. Now I'm worried this space will make him think I'm bad. To be fair, it was a reaction to being treated that way, but it didn't warrant what I did either, if that makes sense. Well, it doesn't matter what they think. Doesn't matter what anyone thinks. What do you think of yourself? Work on your self-concept. If you can recognize that you fucked up in the past, then it's important for you to be self-compassionate about how you did what you could with the information that you had. Moving forward, you've been given this lesson, and how can you not repeat that same mistake? And if you live in a way where you're able to create a sense of integrity in an area that you previously didn't have integrity, then you won't need other people to validate that for you. It's nice when people can validate you for it. It's nice when people can see and appreciate the ways in which you've changed and grown. Lord knows I appreciate that when my friends are like, oh my God, you're so different to before. And I'm like, thank you. I've worked very hard to be like this. But I know that I'm a different person. I know that I've put in that effort. So I don't need other people to tell me that, to recognize that and appreciate that in myself. I appreciate it when they do. And they always will say that because it's obvious. But I'm not waiting for permission to be who I am, to be appreciated for who I am. So it takes time to forgive yourself and to return to yourself when you've self-abandoned, or to build integrity in a space that you previously didn't have. If you don't do that, you'll forever be beholden to somebody else's opinion of you. And nobody can live in your mind and live life through your eyes. So that's why I always think it's more important what you think of yourself and not what other people think of yourself. If other people's opinion of you is more important than your opinion of yourself, then you need to go get better opinions. What if it was a casual / situationship, but it lasted 1.5 years? He was the one finding all these things in common and getting emotional with me. It's actually crazy, the number of what if comments. But what if I don't know, I don't know what your situation is and the details of it. So I can't make a final judgment for you. But again, my point is does it matter if they come back or not? I don't think it does. They probably will at some point. If someone's fucked you over and you've cut them off, your absence is going to show them more than you begging. You know what I mean? Because if you did everything that you could, you treated them with love and respect and kindness, in spite of the ways in which they mistreated you, then the absence of that is going to speak volumes. Okay, if you're crying and throwing up and begging for them to take you back, that can give people the ick, because being desperate is not attractive at all. But being disciplined is extremely attractive, whether people are going to be honest about it or not. They're going to try to get you to get into their desperate state where they're coming back around, where you want them to come back around. But if you're disciplined in your no contact and maintaining your sense of self and moving forward with grace, of course they're going to come back, because they're like, damn, I lost a bad bitch. I lost a slay king. I lost a slay queen. You always want to play the long game, always. Again, you don't want to be with someone who needs to lose you to appreciate you, to actually realize how valuable you are, how much value you bring. That's embarrassing for them. To me, it demonstrates a lack of intentionality with the way that they were handling your relationship and the way that they saw you, and that is a huge turn off for me. How do we stop wishing for them to come back? I can realize that he's not the man I want for me, but I can't help but wish for him back. You just focus on yourself, babe. You need to go out and do things. You need to process your feelings. You need to thought dump and write in your death journal, your death note. You need to relinquish, let go of the future that you imagined with this person. You need to reclaim the parts of yourself that you gave up in that relationship and that you think they've taken away from you. But you need to regenerate that, or you need to learn to generate and nurture that part of yourself that you think that you gave up. And it's normal to wish for them back, but it's processing and becoming aware of those thoughts and letting go and living in the present moment without them. That's how you move forward. That's how you stop wishing for them to come back. What if they are with someone who they are attracted to? My ex hasn't given himself a chance to miss me. That's even more embarrassing for them, that they can't be alone. If I've really loved someone, really cared for someone, even if it wasn't for a long time, I'm not running around looking for someone to replace them. I want to process those feelings, process that relationship, and move on as like a new version of myself. I don't want to be carrying the ghosts of my exes into a new relationship, because I don't think that's going to be a great experience for me. And I don't think that's fair on the person that I'm dating. They're going to be paying for the mistakes of somebody else. And I think it's extremely unattractive when I see someone who I've been involved with move on with someone else without having taken the time to process what our relationship meant to them. Because I think it's extremely disrespectful to the new person that they're dating. And like, I take the people that I'm dating and the people in my life as a whole. Like, how do you treat people in your life generally? Not just how do you treat me? Because if you treat me like an exception to the rule, that means one day I'm going to become the rule. I'm going to be the default, and there's going to be some new exception. You know what I mean? So the fact that like they've just moved on into a new relationship to distract themselves from processing however they do or don't feel about me, ew. Why do you want to be with someone like that? Why do you want someone like that in your life? I don't know anyone that's like serially dating, because people that I know have self-respect. One question, gorgeous. In less than a month, it's his birthday. Should I wish him happy birthday? Nah, we broke up 3 months ago. No. You broke up, they're a stranger, okay? No contact is so important after a breakup, in my opinion. Honestly, even if you break up in an amicable way, I just don't think you can return to neutral so quickly. Okay, you need months apart, possibly years, to get to a point where you could maybe see each other in a neutral way and start as new people. Do not look for an in to contact somebody that you don't have in your life anymore. That shit is weird. And that's for like, no. No, no, no. Even if your ex wishes you happy birthday after they've like demolished your heart, that's not a reason to take them back. And that's not a reason to see them as like a better person. I think that's embarrassing that they would need your birthday as an excuse to contact you. No. 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 Oh my God, no. Don't do it. No. No. What if they come back after 1 week, promised everything, left to be with his mistress again after 18 years? Okay, this is so hectic. After a week, they haven't processed anything in a week, okay? They just like are freaking out and trying to do damage control because their sense of self seems threatened, and they're not willing to face the parts of themselves that they need to become a better person. You deserve better. I've always thought about apologizing and making amends, but neither of us deserve that. It's awful I've let go, but these things linger years later. I think when people just want to apologize and make amends, it's more about like doing it for themselves. You know, like, I just want to make myself feel better about this. If there's no like material way in which you're going to improve their life from an apology other than just like that temporary ego stroke, then I think it's better that you just keep your mouth shut and leave them alone. And it's normal for things to linger because, like, you know, your connection to that person obviously is a part of you. Your experience with them is a part of you. But again, it's about like noticing those thoughts and feelings and returning to the present moment that they're not in, you know, and moving forward into the future that they may or may not be in. But don't let yourself spiral into those thoughts and feelings about the past and the potential future that's not actually going to help you be your best self, right? What do you think about old frenemies that try to come back? I think maybe that's a separate video, but I think it's the same general principles. Like, if somebody has been classified as your frenemy and they've like fucked you over in some way and they've come back, it's the same thing. They want an ego stroke. They want to feel better about themselves. They probably haven't changed that much. If they have changed, you know and you notice, and you're not asking these questions. Yep, men are never alone, only for a few months, and then they'll do it all over again. It's a pattern, yes. Old habits die hard, honey. They're very, very hard to break. And again, I've got my own problems. I don't want to be looking after and untangling somebody else's. He's come back like 400 times. He circles the block with every woman that has been nice to him. When I take him back, it's an act of self-harm. Exactly. It is an act of self-harm. Again, you're creating problems for yourself. You have other problems. Problems that probably get you paid. Are these men paying you? Because they need to be. And if they're not, then they can circle the block and then they can circle the drain. Just found out my ex is dating someone new. We've been broken up for 11 months. Move on and live a slay king life. I think this was a guy that replied, that left a comment. And it's been 11 months. Like, they're not in your life anymore. They've moved in a new direction. You need to focus on moving in your new direction. Breakups are hard. Love and pain and heartbreak. They're all inextricably linked. It doesn't mean that it's not worth pursuing love. It doesn't mean that it's not worth nurturing love within, finding, creating self-love. Don't give up. It's not flattery, it's commercialized romance fed to women. Think Hallmark, he changes, comes back, and we take him back. We should work on ourselves because that's the only person you can change and it prevents you from messing up twice. Period. Most come back at some point. None have really changed. It's strange that it's predominantly men. Haven't heard this much from men about a woman. I don't know about that. I think it definitely goes both ways. It's not gender exclusive. I have heard about like women who cheat on their boyfriends and then want them back. But what I've previously discussed in this hour applies. But yeah, it is a Hallmark thing, like when you watch those romantic comedies or those romantic films where the guy fucks up and he realizes how much he fucked up and then wants her back, and you don't know what happens after that. They just probably go through the same shit all over again because it's extremely difficult to change as a person. And if you get to a point where someone has hurt you and is causing you to cry and throw up every day because they're not taking accountability, because they're not prioritizing your needs as equally important to theirs, then maybe they're not the person for you and you deserve better. Because this is why I think it's so important that people experience like healthy friendship before they start centering romance in their life. And I also don't think you should just center romance in your life in general anyway, but I don't have any friends that cause me to cry and throw up every day. And I think that a foundation of a healthy romantic relationship is also friendship. So why is my friend that I'm in love with, that I'm like making a romantic commitment to, causing me to cry and throw up every day? Maybe they're not such a great friend. Maybe they're not so compatible with me as a partner. Something to think about. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about this right now. So, so hungry. I hope that this was somewhat interesting for you, helpful maybe, illuminating in some way. Do exes come back? Often, yes. If we think about like from the dynamic that I set out at the beginning of this video, does it really matter? Most of the time I'm going to say no. You can enjoy the temporary ego stroke that it gives you, but it doesn't mean you have to do anything about it, and it doesn't mean that they've changed, and it doesn't mean you have to take them back, because if they had done something or like demonstrated that they were capable of change, you wouldn't need to watch this video to validate that, and you wouldn't be asking these questions, because a part of you knows that they haven't changed. But you're also looking to figure out whether that feeling is actually the feeling that they haven't changed, or like maybe you've done something wrong. But that's patriarchal, romantic, industrial, complex conditioning that makes you think that people can just change overnight. They can't. Speaking from experience, I tried before and failed every time, and I'm a smart girl, okay? Oh my God. Did you hear my stomach? Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Go live your best life. You deserve it. I just think that people aren't truly embracing like their potential to live, to be hot and have fun. And there's so many obstacles that get in the way of that. Life is hard. But there are lots of little things that you can do to make your subjective experience better in spite of the oppression and the pressure that you might be under, and not taking back somebody who did you wrong and did not take accountability or personal responsibility for that, and is just kind of looking for entertainment, looking to see if you're stupid enough to pretend that that never happened. Not taking your ex back who's fucked you over is one of the ways in which your subjective experience can be improved. Thanks for watching. Take care. Drink lots of water. Tell your friends and family that you love them. Let me know what you thought about this video. Like, comment, subscribe. Send me thoughts, feelings. Follow me on Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, SoundCloud, at friend.crush. You know the drill. Okay, I don't want to have to repeat myself every single time. Yeah. Tell your friends and family you love them. Drink lots of water. Oh my God, I'm literally so thirsty. And go be a better person. I love you. I'll speak to you soon. Don't take your shitty ex back.